Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Hybrid Friends. Today with my good old friend Mike, and we were on a call discussing about all the great new things we will see in the next few months. But we ended up with a discussion between us. We needed to capture for all of you. Like, Mike, before I introduce the topic, just introduce yourself and
Sure.
and why you're so amazing.
I would not say I'm amazing, but so I'm Michael Godfrey. I'm a senior program manager for the Azure OneEdge Connected Experience team. And so that's a team that works closely together with engineering to ensure that our customers are using OneEdge products that if there are roadblocks or there are engineering requests or any issues, I'm part of the group that helps you facilitate, make sure those roadblocks are addressed, and let you know about new issues, new features that are coming, and then work with engineering to feedback back from you as a customer to engineering directly.
So you're doing more or less similar job, but more stick to one customer, like we're doing in the fast track, more or less.
Yeah, it's a very similar
Even more.
role to Fast Track, but I'm more at the the engineering level. So while Fast Track would get their hands dirty with the deployment process, I'm more, guiding that process and helping you understand what's coming down the pipe for roadmap on the new features, understanding where we should go with the deployments, and then any issues that customers are finding as roadblocks or stoppers or even like deal breakers. This is where I go back to engineering and like, this is what we need, this is how important it is for this customer, and we get those conversations going. So
then let's explain the topic we came through. So we discussed one
Sure.
topic, and we are those crazy guys still owning a lot of hardware,
Yeah.
heating our homes, driving our electricity bills up, and we both learned, and also with our colleagues we learned, you still need to have hardware to really understand what you're doing with Azure Stack HCI and our hybrid portfolio, because there are things you cannot do with the Arc jump box or nested virtualized, and that's what more is our starting point today. And yeah, just handing over to you, and you're one of the most amazing guys on that topic, to be honest.
So it came as I've been doing HCI back in the days of Hyper-V and moving into software-defined data center on Windows Server 16 and 19 and even 22, right? I got fascinated with this idea that while I could demonstrate all this and build it in the environments that I built at my previous companies, I needed to experience this in the next level of things. In a level that not having hardware was actually hindering me, right? And so at first I'd come up with a couple of friends, we came up with the HCI sandbox. And this originally started as a tool for understanding SDN. So we built the SDN sandbox on Windows Server 16, and we built that as a virtualized nested environment where we took a single VM or we took a bare metal host and we would deploy Hyper-V, then we would deploy the virtual machines underneath it for the required services like domain controller and a routing and remote access server. And then we deployed out the requirements for SDN. So we built out Hyper-V host, and then on top of those Hyper-V hosts, we built the network controller and all those features. Then that kind of maintained and moved over to 19 and everything. As we moved to HCI, we did the same thing with HCI, but we took out the SDN components. But we found that a major thing was lacking. A lot of the problems that customers had with HCI, whether it was software-defined data center or Azure Stack HCI, was around storage spaces direct, and it really came down to RDMA networking. And the fact is while these nested environments could teach us how to deploy, how to manage, maintain, do everything, when it came to troubleshooting or understanding real environmental issues with drivers or RDMA networking, it was just lacking. And so in 2020, I had an okay year. I got a decent bonus, and I was like, you know what? This is the year where I'm going to invest in myself. And I went and I found it happened at Ignite 2019. Cosmos had gone on stage and he was presenting about Stack HCI because it hadn't been released yet. It was coming out the following month because it was November 19. Right? It was coming out in December of Well, I think we announced it in December of 19, but we came out with it December of 20. But he was showing how you could use the Lenovo SC350, which was a very small 1U half depth, half width box, right?
I think it was also in the background of the keynote.
Yes,
So-
absolutely. It was. It was in the keynote. It was hidden in the background behind Satya too. But it was this small little box, and he pulled it out of a messenger bag, and I was like,
Yeah.
that thing's really cool. So I went looking for these in the summer of 2020, and they were actually pretty cheap. You know, as far as as servers go, I got they were about $1,500 US before you started building them, and that was with a 4-core processor and about 16 gigs of RAM. I built those things up to about, I think I went with an 8-core and 64 gigs of RAM, and that came out to about 2,100 each. And then I went and shopped the NVMe drive from eBay, honestly. And so I got some Samsung 983s for about $80 a pop for a 1 terabyte. So I bought 8 of those and 2 nodes from Lenovo directly. So I spent overall about $7,000 US dollars. And I did the calculations on how much power they were going to use. It turned out they use about 90 watts each per hour. So it equates to about $10 more US for me for electricity. And they're small little boxes, and they're hooked up into my lab in the attic. And then I went the next step, and I went fully with Ubiquiti networking equipment. And so
Same
basically,
here.
I have a 2-node. Yeah, Ubiquiti is really great, except for no BGP support on the UDM Pro, which I really don't like. I've even talked to Ubiquiti directly about that.
Same here. But we need
So
to find
frustrating.
someone that it's pretty frustrating. Also, I also tried to talk to them to get them on the supported networking switch list for the
Me
edge
too.
deployments. With switch lists,
Yep.
I'm running them. My lab is running beneath my desk here, and it's running on the Ubiquiti UDM Pro 24 port. It's perfect. It's
Same
running
here.
perfectly
Exactly.
fine with switchless configuration.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it works great, right?
amazing.
The UDM is a great platform, and it really would help our customers that are in the switchless or very small deployment robos. It would sing, and I made that conversation with Ubiquiti directly, but didn't take off. But this is where, so all in for hardware equipment, while it's expensive for me as an individual, I'm close to 8,000 with the Ubiquiti equipment included, right? When you think about it from a customer perspective, $8,000 for a 2-node HCI cluster is not a lot of money, right? Most customers in these remote office branch office are spending 20, 25,000 for something similar from HPE or Dell. And now I will say that the Lenovo is great hardware and I love it. Even mine's out of warranty, but the processor's not great, right? It's a gold processor. It's not a really built-in processor for a lot of workloads. But this is where things like the Kepler 47 from our friends at Data On, or the Lenovo SE450s, these things are improving, and it really shows you the flexibility of what HCI has, right?
Yeah.
Which is why I like it.
You mentioned Kepler 47, so it's a shame that Data On discontinued the platform.
And I didn't realize they had discontinued it already.
I had a chat with them 2 weeks ago, and we will also have a chat on the channel about why they discontinued the Kepler 47 and how they see the hybrid journey evolving and these small box clusters. But I told you already about the idea of having a community Kepler.
Yes.
Where we work with partners, creating a validated kit and you can print your own chassis. And that's one thing. Leave me feedback in the comments if you want to see that. I need some support and convince people like our product groups to give me some help with that.
Well, so you bring up something interesting. So when I first got onto the team that I'm on and moved over from the field at Microsoft, one of the things we had been was finding a challenge to make a cheaper cluster. And so this is when single node HCI was about to be announced. We were testing on Intel NUCs. And so we got a couple of NUCs. I call them Barbie's Dream servers because we got a discount for getting the pink ones for some reason. But they're 16 core. They have a 256 and a 1 terabyte, and then they have I want to say they have about 32 gigs of RAM in them. Sub $1,000 boxes. But what we had done is we had shoehorned HCI OS onto it, which that wasn't a challenge. It was the drivers, the NIC drivers, right? So we had to manipulate the drivers, and then we essentially built a 2-node switchless NUC cluster. And I don't know if anybody saw it, but this was the basis for the first AD-less HCI cluster config script that we had written. And so this was a completely unsupported scenario, but we had explored deploying single node HCI without Active Directory. And then we had taken it further and deployed out a 2-node HCI cluster without Active Directory.
As you see on
yeah,
screen,
you're digging around for your NUC.
Yeah,
right?
And one platform I really enjoyed, I can get it out here, is I'm using the sleeved ones, the extreme ones, where you buy the chassis and put it in like a graphics card. And those are beneath my desk. I have 2 of them right now. And I really enjoyed those because they are amazing for such scenarios. And you can just put it on a Mezzanine card or on a daughter board, and you can add another controller for more NVMe's or for a graphics card, or with some of them, I think with the newer ones, you're outside a SATA controller, which you could use, and it's a bit janking around, but you can build a pretty cheap cluster. And I had the same issue with the drivers, as you mentioned. But
drivers were fun, but
drivers are fun.
Once you get over that,
that's another thing. Why you need hardware? We will never experience
it's because you have to understand it, right? And there are new features. Well, so there are new features like Network ATC and Network HUD that are exposing network driver issues and things that customers don't necessarily think about, or somebody who's testing and exploring this doesn't understand these kind of things that are really important. Another thing, and this is getting into more expensive hardware, but deploying out with GPUs and starting to do things like GPU connected Kubernetes or GPU connected VMs and partition GPUs. This is an area where I've gotten to explore, mostly because at Microsoft I do have hardware that has GPUs, but in my SC350s I can easily add in a Tesla T4 GPU into that unit very cheaply, right? Because the T4s are not very popular, but this is something that we can do with hardware that you can never experience with virtual machines or nested. You're going to leave a lot on the table with HCI. And then same thing for Kubernetes, right? A lot of people give a lot of support to Lior for his build of Kubernetes, where he built a couple Raspberry Pis into a Kubernetes cluster, and he's running AKS Edge Essentials on it.
Yeah, right? and that's really, even with troubleshooting, or when I was building my lab, it was a hard thing to really get those drivers on. So I tried different approaches using Windows Admin Center to push the drivers through Virtual Machine Manager, pre-packaging it into my deployment image. At the end, it was I installed Windows Server 2022 on that server, put all drivers with all get the drivers. Exported the driver repository, put it on my image, and imported it. And it worked.
And do it through an unattended as well, right?
Yeah, correct. And it's like virtualization is great when you want to build up a demo system, but if you want to learn, you need to have hardware. That's one thing. If you have a small budget, or if you need to pay it on your own, it's a hard thing. It's a shame
if you're going to be in this space, it's a worthwhile investment.
Correct. Right. And it's a shame that Intel does not continue its NUC line. And so that was pretty popular. So Thomas used NUCs for years now in his lab build.
Yeah, Thomas Maurer, yeah.
I'm using those since years.
I have 2 sitting on my desk right now. Yeah. Right now they're using AKS Edge Essentials, but they've been previous HCI boxes as well. But this is kind of what's cool about Arc enabled, and you're not going to get this experience of understanding how you control and commit. And a lot of customers are coming at us saying we have to understand how our applications perform at the edge on premises, and it's like, from a Kubernetes perspective, the app doesn't really matter. What you really have to understand with hardware is the limitations of what you have for CPU, memory. You have to understand the networking, And then you have to understand what it takes to maintain that. Drivers is a cool thing, is a key thing. Understanding performance metrics on real hardware. Running your Kubernetes app or running your VM workload on an edge device like a NUC will tell you if that investment across 1,000 stores will make sense. Or
Correct.
do you need to financially look at increasing those resources?
And if you're investing, I worked with a large company in Sweden. Yeah,
Mhm.
we for testing we just took a few. I think it was a AMD Ryzen,
Yeah.
nearly Epic-like architecture. I think it was Zen 4 or Zen 3 architecture. That I think it was Zen 3, which is similar to the architecture you have within the Epic. And then we started a bit testing around with the performance, and I'd say it couldn't get worse. It could become better, but you really
Right.
get an estimation. And also when we are getting asked by the customer, what performance do you expect from that specific? I don't know. I'm not the hardware vendor.
Yeah.
It really depends on what silicon do they use on the backplane. What silicon do they use on the controllers? Is
Right.
the memory from Hynix or a Samsung? Because that could
There's a
be
lot of
large.
variations. So what
Yeah.
speed of networking are you using, right? Are you using NVMe or SSD or storage class memory, right? All
Yeah.
these things. A lot of customers, like you said, they want benchmarks on how HCI performs. Like, well, because we have such a flexible system, that makes benchmarking almost impossible.
Correct.
Right?
There are tools out there like Scopesys from Acutech who give you a great estimate to all different vendors, but it's because they have so many projects. They learned from all those projects and put that into their tooling. And now they're thinking how can they open that for more customers, for more partners to use, and also then expand the tooling, expand the learning.
Mm.
Getting, for example, those just warnings into it. If you choose in the configuration for an Intel RDMA card that they can pop up the data driver and firmware issues, you may not use those in your build. And
Right.
and here we discussed it in our call before, in our discussion before. The community around the platform around ARC HCI is pretty close. We know all of us for years. You competed against Thomas Maurer for your job.
Ended up having not to, right?
Yeah, and we all learned from Carsten Rachfal about Hyper-V, and Matt Spirit, who is the godfather of Hyper-V within Microsoft, went to Dell, and so everyone is somewhere in the ecosystem, and new friends are joining us. It's a very close community where everyone is working hand in hand to improve it, and based on those discussions we have, it's really like we always find options to improve the whole ecosystem and move forward with feedback from customers, with our own experiences, and yeah, we all tend to buy expensive hardware.
Yeah, and as much as our wives or significant others would not like us to have this hardware,
that's a good thing
it's
of being single and having only an ex-wife.
yes, you can get away with that. Yeah, my wife just turned down my big purchase idea. But you're right.
I can give you a good tip from my marriage. Just go with a more expensive ask. Like I wanted to have a Beamer. Was the best example.
Yeah.
I went to my ex-wife and said, "Can I have the Surface 50 inches? It's only around $8,500.
We're too alike. I've been shopping for Surface Hubs for years now.
And she said,
I want one back here.
And she said, no, but can I have the Beamer for $2,000?
Yeah.
And then it's, yeah, okay, that one is okay.
Yeah. It's too funny because I quite literally have been looking at Surface Hubs since COVID. So I've been wanting one, but can't justify it. But yes, you're right. The hardware, and that's exactly how I got my servers, by the way. I pitched a Surface Hub. She said no, and then I said, well, I want to buy HCI nuts. And she went, you're crazy, but okay. And so you're right. And the thing is I kept asking manager for an investment in hardware. It didn't make sense for an individual to spend company funds on that, but it made sense for a lab. And then, this is something that I've done in my role as a PM for Microsoft. So a lot of engineering secret, a lot of the engineers, they do have hardware, but the majority of their testing goes on virtual machines. And this discussion is exactly the right thing, right? Because a lot of the testing will work fine, but to really experience it, to really know how it's going to work in a customer environment, you have to have hardware. And so what one of my tasks is done internally at Microsoft is I built a lab built on hardware, HP, Dell, lots of different hardware that is in one of our buildings, which is part of the customer experience demo lab, which some customers get to go to. And so I have this hardware and I run different versions of HCI or different other features that we're testing and running, pre-releases, GA releases, so that engineers from around Microsoft can come and test this. So, if you think there's some big, we have all these things, it's not, behind the curtain, we have the same kind of builds and the same processes that you do. And even getting a subscription where I can control the tenant and the permissions is a difficult thing internally at Microsoft. Sorry to spoil a secret for you, but it's a difficult thing. Oh yeah, it's difficult, and even I get my hand slapped about how much I'm spending in Azure. So while these are all, you think that the keys to the kingdom are given to you, it's not that case, right? As an engineer, I run into very similar things that I did working for previous companies. But you're right, hardware is integral to this experience.
And to be honest, do you know how I've got one of the world famous guys on ExpressRoute? How that worked?
How's that?
I had a co-location with 3 racks.
So you hopped on.
And I had an ExpressRoute, peering services, etc. deployed.
So that brings up a good thing, right?
And let me just check if I still have the labels. No, it's not there. But it's really big shout out to my friends from NTT and the German Internet Exchange to help me making that possible. On my private bill, that wouldn't, or a fully private bill without some help of them, it wouldn't be possible. But it was really the option to go into test configurations and also discuss with product group on the same level, even with our product groups, the resources, as I said, are limited. So, and it's where we also need, coming back to my previous call with Kai, we need feedback. We need.
Well, you're bringing up like a great thing in the back of my head. So when I was a PFE CSA, like, you would constantly get asked to help customers deploy ExpressRoute. But the secret was all I knew about ExpressRoute was what I had read and learned in concept and taken on my exams and things. But I'd never actually deployed or managed an ExpressRoute. And it was constantly a thing as a Microsoft employee. You're like, how am I supposed to support ExpressRoutes and virtual WANs and Azure firewalls and everything if I don't have real world experience with it? And so, from the Azure networking perspective, we were able to get sponsored subscriptions to pay for that, which they didn't like because we're spending like $25,000 a month very quickly, Azure Firewall Premium, right, and virtual WANs. But what they didn't really, nobody could ever give us, and what we never got to experience unless we had a customer doing it, was ExpressRoute deployments. I never got to touch an ER until I had a customer ask to deploy it or ask to support it. Right.
And that was before. So now we have options like with the help of Megaport. So you could purchase a Megaport cloud router. You could purchase a Megaport ExpressRoute port, or even ExpressRoute direct port with them, and do some testing for a few days and then shut it down. It's like a cloud service now.
Right.
When we started in the old ages, there was not such a network as a service from any partner. And
no, yeah,
and
you're hitting on the thing that I love most about HCI, and it's not even the HCI or the edge. It's the Azure networking that really supports it in the background, and that if you deploy virtual WAN and Azure Firewall and all that, you're really taking advantage of what our edge solutions can really do, right?
And we should do a talk about wide area network, so our Microsoft network with virtual WAN, and in addition with HCI, because in combination with that, I'm still working on a long-term concept for that. It's how we really have these benefits. And,
right. The package comes because you don't need these MPLS connections anymore, especially if you're like a retailer or you're operating in this remote office branch office.
So
yeah, exactly, because of SD-WAN, right? Yeah.
Because of the SD-WAN and also the I've discussed a long time or nearly a year with Rashmi, so who was leading virtual WAN at that time, that I want to have.
Then she's left, right? Yeah.
Rashmi is awesome. No,
but I think she got promoted or she changed teams recently.
No, she's now leading the whole pack.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's what it was.
Sorry to say so, but Rashmi is even more amazing than you.
Oh yeah, she's a doctor, so yeah.
And the point here is, I think, a Chinese medicine.
I don't remember what it was, but it's a medical field, and then she has this networking security background too. And you're like, how did that? That's a weird cocktail, but okay.
That's what, but it's really the thing that when we built it, what my request was with HCI on the horizon, knowing there's something coming, said we need to have virtual WAN being able to work with dynamic DNS, building IPsec over DNS, so that we are no longer relying on a static IP, so that the retailer or someone can just easily exchange his IP address, and we can run everything from 2 boxes. And she made it. It's in the product for years now.
When we have a private conversation, I'll tell you some more thoughts on networking at the edge that I want to see. But it's a really exciting topic.
About who can join the private conversation.
Networking is definitely, and this is where I see. Internally, this is where we're doing a lot of different work, and you're going to see more announcements at Ignite around some of these things, but. I can't talk about it quite yet.
I teased a bit from the SDN part in this video, so you need to watch that. There's a lot of things coming. I think Ignite will a lot of things to learn for all of us, and also a lot of things.
It's exciting.
Yeah. So.
I hope that this discussion's led to understanding how getting real world experience with HCI, whether it's on hardware, which is where we would ideally like you to experience it. And the cool thing is there's a wide variety of hardware, from a small little Intel NUC or up to real data center hardware like RX 740 or DL380, right? This expansion is something that no other competitor in the edge space really offers. And you can do it with virtual machines, you can do it with physical. The experience is going to be the same at the workload level, but understanding it is really good. As Ignite comes, you're going to hear a lot more about where Microsoft is investing in with HCI and AKS Edge Essentials, and really this whole edge infrastructure. So I know our customers are going to see this and see where the value is. But know that ARC is the key to all of this.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I want to see things go. So.
Yeah. So
that, I think, with good, right?
With that teaser, we should close. Otherwise, I think we were already.
I'm going to say something that I shouldn't say.
NDAs, so we were pretty open today again.
I agree.
Was an awesome conversation. We should do that again, maybe around. We have already. We can tell that we already have a capture call with Alan Kirby, you, and a few others.
Oh, yep.
Shortly before Ignite, capturing all good things, and directly at Ignite, we will air that at that channel as soon as
I don't think Ellen and I are going to get to go to Ignite, so it may be we could do a live reaction. Right, to some of the announcements. Maybe watch a session as a group together and then have commentary or post. Yeah.
Great idea. I need to find.
I know Ellen would have fun doing that.
Yeah. That's one. If you want to see that, in the comments.
Yeah. Comment. Subscribe below. Yeah.
and especially Alan. That would be very entertaining. Together, you
Oh,
and Alan.
yeah, we talk weekly, so Alan's fun. So he's my best buddy on the team.
Yeah. So then, I think we talked enough today, and
Yep.
hopefully we could share some light and some of your glory. And
Stop, you're too kind.
thank you, Mike. It took a long time to have you on one of the
Oh yeah.
videos. I know we discussed a lot about over LinkedIn that we want to do something together, but our
Yeah.
schedule is tight, and
Yep.
and
That's
we
the
used
problem
it.
with being well liked, is I'm in demand.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, we used the chat today to capture our thoughts.
Yep. So I think it's time to commit this to your repo, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And for all the others out there, if you want to have more of those stuff, subscribe to the channel, leave us comments, and happy that you were on the that we had the chance.
Yeah. Nice to meet all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.